Page 364, A Court of Mist and Fury. In the summer court, when a grave insult has been committed, they send a blood ruby to the offender, an official declaration that there is a price on their head, that they are now hunted and will soon be dead. The box arrived at the Court of Nightmares an hour ago. Rhysand to Feyre, Chapter 38.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Massive Encyclopedia. I'm Cat.
Hi guys, I'm Rev, and we are your hosts through the world of Sarah J. Maas.
This is the podcast where we're building a full cross-series encyclopedia, including characters, world building, connections, and everything that SJM has been hiding in plain sight. Okay, I am going to start with a chapter summary for chapters 35 through 39, and then you can get us into the analysis. At the beginning of this chapter chunk, we confirm where the Book of Breathings is, and Feyre uses her Diamante powers to convince Tarquin to trust her and that she has not just gone into his mind. Amren and Feyre break into the little building that houses the Book of Breathings while Rhys is outside guarding, and they get the book, then become trapped in the building when the book realizes that she's not Tarquin. We see Amren use her powers, but it is not enough to get her and Feyre free. But what is enough is the water wraiths have come to repay their sister's debt. Rhys, Amren, and Feyre go back home and open the book, learn more about it and what it possibly can do. We also learned that it was written in a language not of their world. Tarquin sends the blood rubies, the aforementioned ones, making them Summer Court's most wanted. Feyre finds Rhys in a bit of a snit and tries to get him out of it. They flirt. Mor and Feyre have dinner and bond. Then Rhys has a nightmare, and we learn that he has been having nightmares as often as Feyre has been. And we/Feyre see that he has tattoos on his knees, a mountain with 3 stars. Feyre and Amren have a moment where Feyre brings her blood and they talk about the Summer Court, Varian, and the book. Feyre works on her powers and learns more about the High Lords. Feyre and Rhys flirt a little bit more, but that is cut short because they get word that the queens have agreed to meet them. And the chapter chunk ends with them in the Archeron house and 5 queens and 2 guards winnow in to the Archeron house. Rev, do you want to get us started on the chapter analysis?
Yeah, I think we should start talking about Feyre and Rhysand. There is a lot of building of their relationship, of trust, of they have these secret notes that they like now send to each other, and it becomes their little thing that no one else knows about. There's so much to get into Feyre and Rhysand. I think a good place to start is the biggest and most glaring piece of relationship building that their roles have kind of reversed. Feyre is now the person who's on the receiving end of his dreams, and she's now the person trying to play with him. What do you think about that?
There's a lot that goes into this because I think part of this is Feyre is very quickly becoming very confident in her powers. You know, when she is in the Summer Court, she's able to make the little animals out of water, and she's able to use the Diamante powers. Rhys says to her, congratulations. It takes most people years to get the ability to do that. But when you think about it, like, she has gone into the mind of a High Lord. They have to have more power than anyone. We are seeing Rhys have doubts, kind of like Feyre at the beginning of the book. Rhys is the one who's sitting there saying, I wish there was another way we could have done this. I'm really regretting this happening to you. You know, what are your thoughts that these rubies have been sent to us? I think their roles are reversed, but I think also we're seeing the first times where Rhys is doubting himself.
He's also never, ever one time shown us, I regret that there is another High Lord that I really wish could have been my friend. And he's like upset about it.
Well, and it's, we don't have much interactions with the High Lords thus far. We have Tamlin, we have heard about Baron, and this is our first time really meeting a High Lord, but he's a young High Lord, and he has the same ideals Rhys had. In this chapter chunk, what we're seeing is what could have been. If there had been, I mean, but it couldn't be, right? Because if there had not been Amarantha, Tarquin would never be High Lord.
When we're talking about his interaction with really the first other High Lord, other than his interactions with Tamlin, who at one point somewhere Feyre's like, it's his favorite thing in the world to do is to torment Tamlin. Like,
yeah,
he loves it.
Understandably.
But he doesn't want that with Tarquin. He wishes for something different. And there is a big compare and contrast between Rhys and Tamlin and between Night Court and Spring Court. Like, the image that they portray and then the reality. Like, Tamlin gives off this image that, like, I'm the proper High Lord, but is completely disorganized and, like, unrealed in real life, whereas Rhys gives off the impression that he is completely controlled, yet he does feel a little bit uncontrolled, and he doesn't like that. It really is truly played out in the way that their courts are currently, but no one can see Valeris.
She says that on page 379. For a moment, I had not been able to stop myself from comparing. Tamlin hadn't wanted to be High Lord. He resented being High Lord, and maybe that was part of why the court had become what it was. But Rhysand, with a vision, with the will and desire and passion to do it, he'd built something. Even Feyre cannot help but make these comparisons. And of course she would, right? Like, she's lived in both. But everything's always going to be a comparison to Tamlin. I don't think you can get through this book series without it, because he's the villain throughout. And the way he does things, we'll talk about it later with the wraiths and the tithe, but also just Tarquin is more like, if it's a spectrum, he's more on the Rhysand side.
And that is where the regret comes in, because this is the one High Lord where he's like, God, our ideals align so much. You don't even know how much Valeris is like what you want Summer Court to be. And I know how to lead you there. However, this is the only court that has the other half of Book of Breathings, and now I have to trick you and become enemy number one. It sucks for him. He doesn't want it.
And then we see this, we see it kind of play out while they're in the Summer Court. But like you said, when they get back to Valeris, Feyre sees him having a bad day. And she even thinks, a bad day. This was a bad day, I realized, for him. But it's on page 365. She thinks, come on, wink at me. Play with me. Just stop looking like that. And who has been reading this book and who is listening to our podcast does not immediately think of page 108, where he says, no throwing shoes this time. I could almost see the other words in his eyes. Come on, play with me. That's the basis of their relationship. And I feel like this is that changing point for their relationship where she's like, I see what he did for me. And it wasn't all selfless. Now I have to repay. That's part of being in a relationship.
He says, what, you can have like months of a bad time and I can't even have one day. And she's like, I didn't know you were such a morose drunk or something like that. And he's like, you have had all the time in the world.
Yes.
Give me a day.
Well, and right before that, she thinks, week after week, he'd fought for me, even when I had no reaction, even when I had barely been able to speak or bring myself to care if I lived or died or ate or starved. I couldn't leave him to his own dark thoughts, his own guilt. He'd shouldered them alone long enough. This is the foundation of their relationship. This is where I see them saying, there's more to this than just fairy smut. This is more than just, I rescued you and this was the first person you saw. This is them saying, both of them saying, I want you to be better. I want you to be okay. I want you to have more good days than bad days. He was doing this first for whatever reasons, but he consistently did it. She is now doing the same and saying, no, I want to be the second half of this relationship.
After this, like, play with me, just wink at me, do something. And he's not responding. I think in her mind, she remembers back to when Rhysand would not just try and brighten her day, but would like poke at her, like poke, poke. So she starts talking about that shop with all the lacy things, and it doesn't pull him out of his misery. And so she's like, I don't know, maybe I could find some to send to Tarquin. And that like got his attention. You know, he perked up at that.
One of my favorite points of this chapter chunk is when it's kind of right after that. Like this whole part I just loved because it's kind of tit for tat. But when he says, am I supposed to deny that I find you attractive? I've been telling you you're attractive the whole time. But then she says, maybe you should do a better job of it. And the gleam in his eyes turned into something predatory. A thrill went through me as he braced his powerful arms on the table and purred. Is that a challenge, Feyre? If your toes don't curl when that, like, because I think
It's too good.
what part of the best part of any relationship is that beginning flirtation where you're kind of like, ooh, I get that person's reaction. Ooh, I get this. And when she has a thrill went through me because I'm like, oh, now he's playing. Now we get Rhys back. Now we get like, we're seeing this fun between them. And we never saw fun with Tamlin. With Tamlin, it was all lust and isolation. Stockholm syndrome. But controlling. Here, she's being exposed to other people, right? Like he says that in the previous chapters where she's like, maybe I'd like Cassian. And he's like, go for it. I'm sure he'd love it. And like she teases him with Tarquin and he's like, go for it. I am sure he would love it. This is them playing.
Do you know what he does back to her, though? Like, after her being like, maybe I could find some to send to Tarquin, she starts having this fantasy in her head. And she's like, I wonder what would happen if we did go there. And, like, he would just look at them and be like, the place is shut down. We'll leave everything we owe on the counter. And then he would stare at me. And then she ends up realizing that he's using his Diamante powers on her and making her think that she thought this. And like, she didn't even think it. And she was just like, how dare you? Like looking at her palm in the eye.
I think the other thing is like, we all wanted that scene to go longer. Like, I also have it where I just have like a little smiley face where I'm like, it's so good. But like, what I also love is right before that. So like in the middle of this, there was flirting and then there was this. It's, you know, she's already said like the flirting with them is fun. This is kind of going beyond and it's scary also, right? Like he's the villain of everybody's story. He's also the one that was Amarantha's whore. He's also the first one that saved her. So like there's so many other factors. When they are together, it feels fun. And it, like for me, as a romance reader, this is what makes me turn the page. I want to find out when they get like, what's the next breadcrumb in their relationship? Because I've seen online, and I couldn't tell you where, on Instagram, that's all I know. But people are like, oh, maybe Rhys is still the villain. Maybe Rhys and Feyre aren't going to end up together. It's the little scenes like this where we see them just together where I'm like, no, they are so good together. And she wants this, where she's trying to help him. She's pulling him out of this funk that even more says, when Rhys was prepared to brood, it took nothing short of a miracle to get him out of it. Feyre was that miracle.
I think if you contrast the way that she wants to play with Rhysand, the way it works, the joy that she gets from making it work and seeing herself capable of turning him around, Contrast that with the way she felt when she was just kind of force flirting with Tarquin at the summer court, and she just like kept thinking like, this is so bad, maybe I can talk him into this. But it wasn't this joy, it wasn't this excitement, it wasn't
Right. It was a job.
scintillating. It was a job.
Yeah.
And it's completely different.
What is also kind of that mirror for their characters is whenever Feyre had a bad day, she had nightmares about Amarantha, and they would wake Rhys up. He has a bad day, and he's the one that has the nightmare, and she's the one that gets pulled to him. But also she realizes why he's been sleeping in the house in Valeris. It's not because he wants his privacy. It's because he doesn't want the others to know that he's having these nightmares. So maybe that is privacy, but like...
But it's in an attempt to be like a strong leader and to be the person that everyone knows they can depend on, and to never be the person that shows any amount of breaking. But he sleeps in the same house with Feyre and allows Feyre to see him breaking.
One of the things about their relationship is when you have romance, there are different layers to that romance. There's obviously that first physical attraction, the thing that pulls the two people together, but there's also the emotional and the mental attraction, and then the sexual attraction. But with that emotional and mental attraction, you have to be vulnerable, right?
It's the trust,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of those moments where he does not get the choice to trust her or not here, because they are alone in the house and he's had an uncontrolled nightmare. But he lets her soothe him, and they have this moment where he reveals to her, I have nightmares as often as you do. That is how traumatized he is.
He also didn't have to tell her what the nightmare was about, but that's the vulnerability he shares with her. I had an under the mountain nightmare, and he could have just said bad things, I don't want to talk about it. But that little
Right.
bit of giving her that little kernel of an insight into what he actually feels and what he's thinking, and the vulnerability of saying, yeah, it really scarred me. I don't want anyone else to see it. That's why I sleep here. But I'm willing to look you in your eyes and tell you about it face to face. That's the building.
It's also showing her you are not the only one. You're not alone. And he's now not alone. It just goes to show, because, I think we talked about this last season. We only really see Amarantha for a handful of chapters. She's only around for like 8 or 10 chapters before she's killed. But the power and the longevity of this character's reach,
Consequences.
right, is books long. Like, we are more than halfway through the second book, and we are still, Tarquin is talking about it. Rhys is talking about it. When we meet the High Lord of the Winter Court, we learn about what happens there from Amarantha. Like, this is a devastation that goes beyond an uncomfortable moment. Having Rhys and Feyre share this relationship, share this moment, I think becomes one of those turning points for their relationship to go beyond friendship.
Is there any other highlights that you want to talk about before we move on to the next subject that I want to talk about?
Nope, nothing that can't wait for another day.
Let's get into the most exciting part about these chapters.
The whole point.
The Book of Breathing.
Oh,
Breathings? Is it the Book of Breathings or the Book of
breathings.
Breathing?
It's plural.
Breathings. At one point, this is the first thing I have written down. It's on page 340. I could not tear my eyes from it. Like it was a little piece of home. When she's talking about that little building that she saw, there is some connection between her and this Book of Breathings. Why does she feel pulled to it like it's a little piece of home? We've talked about home so many times. And she says that on page 3 of this chapter chunk. What are your thoughts on that?
I also highlighted it because we are going with Feyre on this journey. And I think that's one of the positives about writing a book like this in first person, because we are seeing in her mind. We are learning things as she learns them. And we don't know what her powers are. We don't know what she's supposed to feel when she is using them, when she's in the specific courts. You know, she's supposed to light the candle when they're in the room and she uses water. It just comes naturally, right? Mm-hmm. It's the only thing I could think was that Amren says it in later on in the chapter chunk, something like, I doubt the High Lord has even seen this book. It might be a power that transfers to him automatically, like blood magic. If that's the case, then she has a drop of that blood magic. And I wonder if that's what was pulling her. If she just sees that piece of magic, that piece of home, that piece of her. But also identity has been such a strong theme. And this is part of her identity. Her part of her power, part of who she is in that book.
Also, the description that she uses to describe this little building, this, what we find out is like a temple that is run down or whatever. She says, like, it was a little piece of home, wet and miserable looking as it was. That's like her home in the human lands, just like this miserable little place. Now that she's in the fairy parts of Prithian, everything is magical. It's grand. It's pretty. Even Summer Court, as much as she walks around and she's like, there's buildings with cracks in it, and this building has been bombed, and this part is run down. It's still more grand than anything she's ever seen. I think this is one of the first things that she sees that fairies are in control of that is wet and miserable. And she's like, I can connect with that. That's how I grew up. This doesn't look like a fairy place. This place is like dank. There's mud. There's like seaweed attached to it. And she's like, yeah, that place looks like it kind of sucks. That feels like home to me. That's where I'm from.
Do you know what it reminded me of? Yes, it reminded me of their shack of a house. But it also reminded me of the temple in Throne of Glass that Aelin and Manon go into. I think they're going after one of the word keys or something. We'll have to pay attention. They come back and that's when they see Ansel. Like, the way I imagine it, it's like marshes and water and mud is everywhere. And it's just the ruins, essentially. That's what this felt like.
It even has the name like Marsh in it or something like that. It's going to be a long time before we get there.
Yeah.
That's like books like 6, 7, or 8 of Throne of Glass, and we still have to get through this and get through Crescent City.
And get through the new ACOTAR books.
We're not even going to start with that. That's going to be an entire situation.
One thing that I thought was really interesting is that it is protected by lead. So we know in Throne of Glass, iron is what stops the Fae and nulls their powers. But here it seems to be lead, or at least lead is stopping whatever magic this is, because they've got the lead door and it is in a lead box. And I think it is described as being made out of lead, isn't it?
It is, I think she says silver, copper, gold. All of the pages in it are like metal with 3 separate rings in them, but like it's not this kind of book.
Yeah, it had been formed of dark metal plates bound on 3 rings of silver, bronze, and gold. It's really interesting that the part that lead plays into it.
So if Amren starts talking about the sarcophagi that are lined with lead, it kind of makes me think, if this door is lead and it has swirls and whirls in it, and Amren can like touch it and interact with it, are they trying to keep people out, or are they trying to keep the Book of Breathings in? Because when you think of a sarcophagi, I'm like, what's happening? Are they keeping that evil contained, keeping other people out? It's a mixture of both. It's just interesting that she says a sarcophagi, and that makes you think like keeping this dark person in case it ever gets reanimated. Like, it's keeping this book in. It's not keeping other people out, or both. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think I also caught the on 349, but there, a carved whorl in the center of the door. This has been here for a very long time, I murmured. Is that a word mark? Is that how old this is? And we know from Crescent City 3 that there is a sarcophagus underneath the prison. Is this the same kind of metal? Is this the same kind of design? I don't know. It's really interesting. Lead is not going to stop a Fae from being able to use magic, right? Like, we haven't heard that at all through this series. So
apparently it stops a steri. But does it? What if Amren is a steri? Maybe it didn't stop a steri.
But who is this stopping? And or is it stopping the book? How powerful is this book that it needs to be stopped from coming out? Very powerful.
Okay, I have an idea, because you have talked about this before. Inanimate objects that are not inanimate, they actually are sentient. And we know how much this book communicates with Feyre when it thinks Feyre is Tarquin, because she like tricks the book.
But I think there are parts later on in this book where the Book of Breathings talks to Amren and kind of taunts her. And she's like, shut up, stop talking. No, don't look at that book. You talk to me. Like, this book has a personality, and it is old. And this is two things. It is sassy. But, so I have two things from page 352. So the first one is, and now I heard, clear as if Amren herself whispered it, who are you? What are you? Come closer. Let me smell you. Let me see you. This sounded to me like the Weaver. So on page 108.
Because the Weaver's blind.
The Weaver's blind. 223. What are you, she said in a voice that was young and lovely. What is like all but unlike all? And then on 352, who are you, what are you? An ancient cruel voice hissed, liar, and slammed the door. But then the book also says to her on 358, like calls to like, unmade and made, unmade and made. This is the cycle. Like calls to like. It's not verbatim, but it is very similar to the Weaver.
I have so many thoughts about this, so I'm diving into this little section right now.
Sure. The page on 358.
358 is where kind of I started my thoughts, and I think I have other quotes and other ideas that explore other pages, but like calls to like, we know what that means. We've heard it before. But then if you think unmade and made, that's Feyre being killed and then turned into Fae, and then made and unmade. This is the book itself. The book was made, and then the book was killed or unmade by being split in half. So that's the like calls to like, made and unmade people. And so is Amren.
And so is the cauldron. It was made and unmade. It was broken apart.
Amren was unmade from what she was, and then just like Feyre and Miriam, made into like this Fae-ish type of being. So like all of these people are so connected by the like calls to like, how many sentient objects do we have that were made and unmade, and how many of these objects are going to have been unmade in the past, and we are going to make them again and make them whole. Like, it's crazy the ties that all this is together.
And the conversation that it has with her, where it's... So I'm a little bit confused here. Because it's, hello, liar. Hello. Will you read me? No. But she can't read him. Or it. So, like, does the book want to be read? Does it want her to read it because she has the power of it? And then the others didn't say a word, though I felt their confusion. But on the next page, Cassian's hazel eyes were dark. I never want to hear that voice again. So, like, what can he hear? What can he not hear? But the fact that it calls her a liar twice, and then Cursebreaker, it called me, and the box clicked open.
So
What
it's
does
like,
that mean?
here I am. I'm opening myself up to you, even
Right.
though
And it it's playing with her.
Open, I said silently.
Say please.
Please, I said. The book was silent.
Open. And then it opens for her, but it calls her curse breaker. It's giving her a title other than liar, other than thief.
how does it know that she's a curse breaker, that she broke the curse if it's not sentient? Because by the time that
Right.
book was locked up, it's how many thousands of years ago?
Right. There is so much to this book.
The other thing I want to talk about on it is it is no
Language of this world. What world is this from?
And then we learn, this is all on 359, it is the Lashon Hokadesh, the holy
Tongue. That's Hebrew.
Lashon
Hokadesh is actually Hebrew. And then Rhysand says, I heard a legend that it was written in a tongue of mighty beings who feared the cauldron's power and made the book to combat it. Mighty beings who were here and then vanished. You are the only one
Isn't that
who can
exactly
encode
like
it.
what the Asteri do to every
Yes.
single world that they go to? They're there and then they
Yes.
vanish and go somewhere else.
And I think we learn that this was one of the worlds that the High Lord, this is how the High Lords formed, I think, is they all fought the Asteri and kicked them out, and the Asteri left. But it's like they don't vanish, they fought. There was a great war here. It's just so interesting why this book was created. The fear, like the power that the cauldron has, that the Asteri are scared of it. And we learned that Rhys thinks that it might be able to free Amren.
He said, I pulled you aside and I wanted you to come with because, yes, everyone knows that the reason that he brought her is because she might be able to read it. But also, he wanted to expose her to it and say, this could give you what you want.
Feyre even thinks
10,000 years in exile alone. We know that Rhys believes in hope, and Feyre has not in the past, but we know that she's starting to lean into hope. That's what Rhysand is giving Amren right now. Hope that she can go home if she wants to. And it's
If she
all
wants to leave
tied,
Arian.
right? But it's all tied into this book.
on 356 we learn that place or that damned book nearly nullified my powers, Amren hissed.
We almost drowned. And we learn that Rhys could not talk to her through the bond. That's just showing more powers that this book has.
It's sentient. It's being active.
Because he says, I didn't feel it through the bond. It probably nullified that too.
This is a kernel of power. This isn't even the full book.
So this brings me to the last point I wanted to make about the Book of Breathings. Why was Summer Court chosen to be the recipient of that half of the Book of Breathings? What about
Yes.
Summer Court is different from everyone else? Mm-hmm. Why those people in power were chosen? Is it maybe because they're actually good people and the most likely people, the most likely court that would not abuse it, that they would lock it away and try and make sure that they didn't abuse that power? I mean, I can't say, but nobody would say that about Rhys because no one knows about Valeris. So why did Summer Court get it?
I don't know. I want to be very careful because the High Lord that Tarquin is might not necessarily be the High Lord or the court before him and before Under the Mountain. We don't know anything about the High Lord of the Summer Court previous other than he was part of a rebellion that Amarantha killed. So is the Summer Court known for being good? I don't know. But why them? Because Rhys does say that they're a neutral court. It's really an interesting point for the encyclopedia to kind of keep an eye on.
And, we are through book 5. And a lot of book 5 was about some character growth and the building of the Valkyries and like how we're approaching the next section of this war. but we don't really have any honest answers about the Book of Breathings, the Summer Court past, or it really, like, we don't have a ton of information about a lot of other courts, even at the end of book 5. We know a little bit about a little bit. We know some about autumn. We know some about dawn. We know some about summer, some about night, some about spring. But there's still courts that we really have not, like Winter Court, other than your favorite scene that's ever been written ever.
My favorite.
Still have to learn more about the other courts before we get proven why Summer Court was the one to receive the Book of Breathings.
Yes, I agree.
Last topic number 3. I am almost as excited about this as I was about Book of Breathings. I want to talk about Amren.
This is the Amren chapter chunk. Hands down.
Go for Amren. Go.
Okay, well, I will start with, in the last chapter chunk, we get a couple of like Amren and Varian hints.
But we really see them. So like page 2 of this chapter chunk, 339.
They're standing kind of next to each other, but not next to each other. And Feyre thinks, man, they're like cats and dogs. Like he's looking at her like he wants to push her over, and she's looking at him like, go ahead and try it. There's a tension there, but there has to be more to their relationship, because when the blood rubies are sent, Varian sends her another one as a peace offering.
Mm-hmm. Another necklace with diamonds and rubies, like that connection, like ruby to ruby. Trying to make peace with you.
Right. And he says, this is so that you don't come and kill us all. How powerful is she that even in the Summer Court, they have heard of her wrath? What are her powers?
We still haven't seen many of them yet. There's still so many people we need to learn about. There's no way there's only 3 more books, and one of them's a novella in this series. Like, there's just no way. There's still too many more people to learn about. I want to talk about how much Amren is compared to a cat, since you just brought it up.
Yeah.
Like, 339, a cat playing with a dog. Also, she's sitting there cleaning her nails while Varian is staring at her. Amren was practically washing herself like a cat bath. On page 351, nasty, nasty door, she hissed. Like, Nesta, right? Like hissing like a cat. It's so good.
And the way she's described, like she's small, she's very cat-like. And I've read these books 3 times, 4 times. I've never made those connections.
I've also
never noticed, I don't know how, because it's literally right there
in black and white,
that we see her using her powers. We see her hand bright.
It's the beginning of chapter 37. Her fist a radiant forge as she slammed it into the lead. Amren's blazing palm flattened against the door, burning, heating the metal, swirls and whirls radiating out through it as if they were a language all her own.
Isn't that how the Asteri use their powers?
I remember everything, as I say.
You always do.
Podcast. So I'm just going to have to say, I don't remember at all.
But there's another part where she is controlling the water.
Yeah, where she puts her hand out and like she doesn't part it completely like Moses style, but like she makes enough room for Feyre to like get through and start to get out.
It's the next page. I realized her outstretched hand wasn't for me, but for the door she'd forced back into the wall, holding it away until I could get out. Amren slipped around the threshold just as the door rolled shut again, so violently that I wondered at the power she used to push it back, and then further down. But Amren held out a palm in front of us, and the water buckled and trembled. Not a clear path, but a break in the current. I feel like these are just breadcrumbs of Amren's power. She is very powerful. She's also letting Feyre see all this, right? Like she has to because they're going to die. But it is very trusting, as we've, kind of a theme in this episode, to show someone the depth of your power.
It opens up a door where you now have a vulnerability, a weakness, because if someone knows what you can do, they can think about how would I block that if I needed to. Everyone is scared of Amren because anytime they see her, she's never afraid of anything. Well, except for one thing that we'll get into where her hands are shaking. And I think it's kind of comparable to Rhys. The more you are not scared of anything and just act like, whatevs, no big deal, the scarier you are.
But also what we see,
I've already made the comparison between Amren and Rhys, like how they're very similar in you were breaking, I saw that you needed help, so I'm giving you this amulet, right?
but there's a line on 357 where she says, only an immortal with a mortal heart would have given one of those horrible beasts the money. It's so... Amren laughed again. Whatever luck you live by, girl, thank the cauldron for it. If we compare this to Akatar, page 414, this is the very end of the book. Rhysand stared at me for long enough that I faced him. Be glad of your human heart, Feyre. Pity those
Who don't feel anything at all. They see her and they recognize her, but they also see the power of this mortal heart in an immortal being.
On that same page, she also says, you know what? It would have been a lot easier to live with what I did if I didn't have a mortal heart. And maybe that is why Amren is so powerful and so carefree, that she doesn't have a mortal heart. And that's where she sees that difference between her and Feyre. Like, girl, only you. Oh my God.
Right.
But I guess thank the cauldron that you did, but still.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up
Is kind of like all of
pages 374 through 375.
we're seeing just Amren and Feyre. Like, this is their friendship. And I feel like we see this a lot more in Silver Flames because Nesta and Amren become friends. But this feels like a precursor to that. Feyre thought to bring her blood and ran there as fast as she could so it would get there warm. That is a very caring person who speeds through the city carrying blood so that it's not cold.
While she's there, she notices, like, how would I even heat this up if it would have arrived cold? She doesn't even have a kitchen. All she drinks is blood. And, like, Amren's furniture appears to be, like, moved around all the time, almost like she lives in this slightly unsettled state that nothing is comfortable and she keeps, like, moving stuff around. And the other coolest thing is Rhysand gave her blood ruby and she's using it as a paperweight on top of some papers on the floor. She's not even sitting at a table. She's just hanging out on the floor with the blood ruby as a paperweight while she's, like, doing work. She just kind of, like, has no F's to give about a lot of things.
This reminds me of kind of like the things that you've been saying, where her fear factor isn't that she's some foreign creature. It's not that her eyes glow silver. It's not that she drinks blood. It is all of that. But it's also, she has just been labeled one of Summer Court's most wanted. And her response is, burn it down. Oh, I can't do that because they gave me another necklace. She's using it as a paperweight. She is not scared. It's such good writing. It's funny. Like, you literally laugh out loud. You're like, oh my God. But it's also very telling of who she is.
The way it's so telling is because it's so nonchalant. Who uses a big ass ruby to hold down some papers that you're working on, not even on a desk, on the floor, in a place where she moves around her furniture all the time? Could it get bumped? Could it get lost? Does she care? We know she loves her jewels, but she's also like, meh, yeah, it's on the floor. It's fine. I don't care. That is so I don't care energy. That is scary power. If you don't care that much, that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to bring up in this little conversation that they have is at the end of 375
when they're talking about Cassian, and Amren kind of like waves off the talk about him. Cassian's just a busybody.
And Feyre says, he cares about you, all of you. You're the only family he has. They were all the only family they each had. Then Feyre thinks, it seemed to please her nonetheless.
We are, again, even when the characters aren't there, we are reminded that they are family, that they're the inner circle, that they are brother and sister, and they fight and they pick at each other, but they all very much love each other.
Everyone is from these random places and just kind of dropped into this place where they find each other and bond, you know? And it just connects with what she says about Cassian, because that's the way that Feyre's feeling, even though this is a chapter about Amren. That's how she's feeling about this entire group. And that's how we see all this focus on Amren in these chapters. Is actually how cared about she is.
Well, and this kind of ties back to what I was saying earlier. You know, like the basis of a romance has to be more than just physically, I lust for you. There has to be more foundation. And one of my personal pet peeves is when we have these romantasy and romance books and they just list off all the tropes. It's found family. You got to prove to me that this is a found family. And that's what Sarah J. Maas is doing here, right? She is repeatedly showing how Cassian and Azriel are protective of Mor. Where were you? You didn't come home with us. Who did you go home with? It's Rhys trusting Mor and Amren. It's Feyre saying to Amren, Cassian loves you. You guys are family. And Amren doesn't deny it, and she knows it. She kind of gets a smile on her face, right? Like, if you are going to tell me that there's a found family trope in a book, you use this as your role model. You're showing me in multiple chapters over and over again. I mean, the first time we meet Mor is when Feyre is going to the night court for the first time, and we see a banter. We see a relationship between her and Rhys that shows a love already there. And I just love watching these relationships deepen and seeing what Feyre brings to the mix, because she is bringing a new facet, a new corner into their little weirdly shaped found family.
One last thing that I wanted to say about the Amren topic, and it ties into exactly what you were talking about, how much Feyre is bringing in. We know in the future, Nesta brings her own little spice bottle to this mix. And a lot of people she doesn't meld with, but she gets so close to Amren. And what I think is funny is I can't wait to see this play out. Page 377. Maybe Varian and Cassian could compare notes. Because like Nesta's compared to a cat, Amren's compared to a cat. We know that Feyre builds this trust with Amren, and then like we pull Nesta into the mix, and then this is tying. I think we're gonna see Cassian and Varian at some point in time become friends in the future. Just a little prediction. Last thing I wanted to say. What else do you want to say about Amren?
I think that was all I had.
Is it mentionables time?
Yeah, let's go to the mentionables.
All right. Yours are listed first. So do you want to go first?
I've kind of already mentioned all of mine. Is Feyre's titles on 346. She's called a liar and thief. Also, the book names her Cursebreaker and comparing her to a cat. And then I think the rest of them are yours.
I got page 341. This black diamond necklace. I don't know if we're going to see it again or if we won't, but I think there's going to be futures with this black diamond necklace. Swirls and whirls all throughout. We see it in more than one chapter. 363. This is a big one for me, Kat. Do you remember, was it 2 years ago when we went to Ren Fair and I was like, do I need to get some daggers for my outfit? And I got that little thigh sheath and I was like, do I need to put a dagger in here? I think I should.
I do.
we get our very first, that I can think of, big influence of a chick with a dagger. This dagger is mother of pearl, I think it sounds like, in the handle. It's on page 363. God, we love girls with daggers. 368, calluses. Once again, we see some calluses on Rhysand's hands while he's touching Feyre.
Wait, hold on. The dagger is on the box.
Is it
not
not?
by-
I thought it was a dagger, like, in the box.
No, I think it's on. I just now
Like a
looking at it.
picture of a dagger, you mean?
Yeah, there was a wood box beside the decanter, and I might have thought it was something for whatever he was drinking had I not noticed the dagger fashioned of mother of pearl
On the lid.
Yeah, I thought there was like a dagger in it, and the handle had the handle was fashioned from mother of pearl. You're probably right. It's probably just a picture of a dagger, huh? That makes more sense.
Yeah, it does make
I'm
sense.
keeping it. I don't care. It's a mention
it.
of a dagger, and it has to do
Sure.
with a chick. And this
We
is
love it.
SJM. 378, where she talks about her stolen powers. She didn't steal them. They were given to her. So we're going to have to come to terms at some point when we get more into favorite chapters and talk about her mindset, where she literally calls herself a liar and a thief. The Book of Breathings called her a liar. Like, this is the mindset that she has. So she says stolen. I just want to make a point. I don't think they're stolen. I think they were given.
Yeah.
Page 380, when the group gets back to the human lands and at Nesta and Elaine's, the Archeron house, Papa Archeron's still missing. He's still MIA. Guess he's finally off figuring out how to do business. It does make the plot better for the future, though.
Sure. I have a couple of crossovers with Crescent City and Throne of Glass. The first one, I've already mentioned it. It's 349 and 355. So the whirl on the door and then the symbols flaring from Amren's power. Are those Asteri? Are those word marks? Are they the same? In Crescent City 1, Bryce's father, the King of the Autumn, is described as ancient and cruel. And in Crescent City 2, Therian is talking to the Queen of the River, and she is described as ancient and cruel. And that is how the voice of the Book of Breathings is described, ancient and cruel. We've already said SJM is very particular about her verbiage. What are the odds that in 16 books she uses that particular phrasing only 3 times? And then this one, I'm going to have to quickly grab my book.
I said I wasn't going to mention it, but as I was doing more research,
I have to mention it.
in House of Flame and Shadow, so this is Crescent City 3 on page 28, Amren turned to Rhysand and said in that new strange language, their language, the glowing letters inked on her back, they're the same as those in the Book of Breathings.
How, and we know that Rhysand says that that's the language of the powerful beings. So we know that that's the Asteri. Just a connection, wanted to make it.
So if what you are saying is true,
Which it is.
how does Danica know the ancient language?
Is it because of her boyfriend who works for the Asteri? I can't ever remember. Baxian. That's his name.
Baxian. Oh, yeah. That guy. Mm-hmm. I will.
Yep. But, right, like, why does Danica know to put that on her back? There's so many connections. And this is why we're doing the encyclopedia, right? Like, the fact
Yes.
that, like, we're on book 2 of the second series, and this is on book 3 of the third series, but that has been in place since book 1 of the third series. Come on.
Word marks with a Y, ward marks with an A, word marks with an O. Word marks.
All over.
They're
Right.
all over.
Yeah. Throne of Glass, when we watch Feyre transform into Tarquin, this is very different from the transformations that she has done in the past and that we see Tamlin do. It reminded me so much of Dorian's transformation because it's a human to a human. She physically becomes Tarquin. That's very powerful magic. But also, the only other person I think we see use magic to transform, not including Lysandra, because she's a shapeshifter, is Dorian when he becomes one of the witches. And then going back to Ancient and Cruel, that is how the Valg are described in Throne of Glass. A couple of the demons are described as ancient and cruel.
Ancient and cruel. There is a part that I wrote down, and I can't remember the page number, but it comes back to what you were saying about how Feyre's power transforming into Tarquin matches Dorian's power. She says to herself, I don't even know what kind of power or whose power I just accessed or what power I used.
Right, I don't want to think about it.
She doesn't even know the court that it comes from.
But we all assume it's from Tamlin, right? Because he has the transformation powers.
But so does Rhysand.
But yeah, he can. But they all can transform into monsters.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
But Tamlin is known for his transformation. That's how he transforms Andrus into the wolf.
But I did not give myself a moment to think about what power I might have just used.
So you obviously had it highlighted too then.
I just had it written where I was like, Tam. That's whose power. That's all I have for my connections. Is there anything else?
I don't think so. I think it's time for us to go have some marks.
Before we do that, let's just let everyone know, if anyone's reading along, next week we're going to do chapters 40 through 44. Only 4 chapters, but it's like 60-something pages. And what we're looking forward to is the Human Queens. This is when things start heating up. And on that note, why don't we meet in, say, 15 minutes, grab a margarita, and talk about the side quest we're going to work on?
I could so be there in 15 minutes. All right. I'll see you soon.
All right, see you in a bit.
Bye, guys.
Bye.